Hey everybody, what's up? It's short time as usual, and you know how we do it every weekend, hosting a couple of people, having a lot of interviews. But today, guys, I'm riding solo. But good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you're catching us from the entire world. I'm privileged that you're here to listen to this to this talk with me. So, guys, today we are talking about energy systems. A friend of mine yesterday asked me, like, how can I know the energy system that I'm using while doing certain exercises? And I felt, guys, I should come here and then share this with you because someone out there might be, asking the same question and you want an answer. So this YouTube video is basically addressing that today. But otherwise, guys, thanks so much for for coming through. And if you're coming through for the first time, please hit that subscribe button so that you always get notified when we have these interviews for our usual uploads. And if you're watching this, not live as an uploaded video later, please remember to comment down below so that I can know that you came through and watched this or learned something. Please, guys, we also remember that we have a join button. So if you want to be one of our exclusive members, please click that join button below. But also there's a link in the description box that you can click and then be able to access our affordable perks. Otherwise, how are you doing, guys? So today we're talking about energy systems. So thanks for joining us. Wherever you're joining us from, please share this video with a friend, like the video, comment down below and let me know what you think. And if you're watching live, please let me know in the live chat or if you have questions about these energy systems, I'll be able to answer all your questions. The early birds, Ron Phoenix channel, I see you. Thanks for coming through. You're always there, and I don't take that for granted. But one thing I want to be clear about is, I mean, you've just come and there's a lot of science in all this that we are going to talk about. But hey, if you're so much interested about your health, if you want to transform your life, you have to do research. Like, you gotta do research, and you're going to find a lot of this scientific research. So if you're not a scientist, you have to know a couple of these things, at least get to know the basics, so that you're not misled, because there's a lot of information out there, especially on this platform, YouTube, that can mislead you. So it's also about you to do your own research, read, so that you don't, you are not misled in one way or the other. So we're going to be talking about some scientific stuff here, but don't fear the science. It's just part of us. Where you don't understand, please let me know so that I can explain. One thing that we need to know, that humans, we need energy to survive. And where do we get this energy? We get this energy from the foods that we eat. So we derive our energy that we use from food, if you get what I'm saying. But we don't directly use that energy. So food has to be broken down into ATP, or what we call adenosine triphosphate. And this is the form of chemical energy that is available for use for our bodies. You understand what I'm saying? So that chemical energy is what is available for all the cellular functions. And our fuel is food. So basically, the food, you eat food, then the energy in the food is called kilojoules and all that kind of stuff. But the energy battery, I mean, ATP acts like our energy battery. It's where our energy is stored, so that when you want to use it, it's readily available for us to use. So there are three energy systems that you guys have to know about. The first two energy systems that I'm going to tell you, they are basically anaerobic, meaning that they actually happen in the absence of oxygen. So the first one is the Phosphagen system, or the ATP creatine phosphate system, right? So it happens in the absence of oxygen. Then the second one, we have the Glycolytic or the lactic acid system. It also happens in the absence of oxygen. Then the third one that I'll talk about is the aerobic system. The way you hear the word aerobic itself, tells you that it happens in the presence of oxygen, right? So we are going to break down each so that you can know when you're doing certain exercises which energy is at play. If you're doing this, what are you using? If you want to burn fat, which energy should you employ to help you burn more fat? If you understand what I'm saying. So one thing before I even discuss individual energy systems is you have to understand that ATP as a molecule is limited in our bodies. It's not like don't have like jerry cans of ATP in our bodies. It's basically limited in our bodies. So its consumption or its synthesis should actually follow the synthesis of ATP. So if you're using ATP, if you're consuming ATP, then it should be followed by its synthesis, and then the cycle continues. So you have to know that as well. Then, so let's discuss the phosphagen system. So basically in our bodies, we have this much called the creatine phosphate. Just like ATP, it's also stored in limited amounts in our bodies, especially in our muscles. So this phosphagen system, the way it works, like I've told you about ATP, adenosine triphosphate, what happens is when the body is broken down, when you need to do an activity or move your muscle, do certain contractions, muscle contractions, what happens is that one of the phosphates, the bond that links the phosphate atom, is broken down, then remain with ADP, adenosine diphosphate, because now there are two, so it becomes ADP, which is adenosine diphosphate. Then the phosphate is gone and you have reached the energy level for contraction. But now in the phosphagen system, what basically happens is you have the mulch being broken down to release energy. But then what happens is this system, because it happens in the absence of oxygen and it's really quick, so you release energy, but that energy can only last for about 10 seconds. That's like a very short time, about 10 seconds only. So this system, you don't need to use glucose, fat, or anything. You simply have your creatine phosphate in your muscles, because we get creatine from food as well. Then it's available in your muscles, but like I said, it's very limited. So when you start an exercise, which can last only for 10 seconds, it's broken down, releases the energy, and then the mulch is formed again. And it can only form or it can only replenish after 4 to 5 minutes. So when you use this kind of energy system, one, when you're sprinting, for example, you're sprinting from maybe a 30-meter race or 100 meters, like the likes of Usain Bolt, when they are sprinting, they need that robust kind of energy because there's no oxygen, they're not getting like sufficient oxygen. So what the energy system they employ is the ATP-CP system, because yes, it's inefficient, but then it provides that robust energy for you to sprint very fast. So one of the areas where you can use that energy system is when you try sprinting. For example, when you're doing your high intensity interval training and you're sprinting, then that's the energy system that you're using. For example, when you're doing a heavy lifting set, you're lifting heavily, maybe 1 to 3 reps, because you need that robust energy. So you're basically using the ATP-CP system. But otherwise, guys, thanks so much for joining me. Thanks so much for joining me. I see you. Thanks for the mad love. If you have any question, like I said, please do not hesitate to ask those questions. Let's look at the second energy system. The second energy system is called the glycolytic or the lactic acid system. And like I've said, it also happens in the absence of oxygen. So this one, mainly you burn carbohydrates. You need carbohydrates for this energy system to, come into play. But preferably your glycogen. So glycogen is a form of, is a storage form of carbohydrates or sugar. It's either stored in your liver and in your muscles, but depending on your stores, you can store about 500 grams of glycogen in your muscles and in your liver. So that glycogen then is broken down into sugar, then it enters into the process of glycolysis. But I wouldn't want to, break down the bits of that process glycolysis because, there's a lot of science in there, the biochemistry, and I might not be able to, break it down for you right here, maybe in a presentation or on a board. That's when you would actually understand what I'm talking about. But what you need to know is it happens in the absence of oxygen, and the end result is you're actually producing 2 molecules of pyruvate and 2 molecules of ATP. But because there's no oxygen, what basically happens is instead of continuing into the third step that I want to tell you about, it instead goes into the lactic acid synthesis. So basically, lactic acid, it's that it's what makes our muscles burn. When we work out, it's that sensation of fatigue, tired that we get, if you understand what I'm saying. So lactic acid, it actually burns. So it's what tells us, please, can you stop working out so that you can regenerate maybe more energy? You understand what I'm saying? But what happens is you have produced 2 ATPs, and that energy is what's going to fuel your workout or the exercise that you're doing. So what happens is this glycolytic or lactic acid system can either take over, especially if you've employed or if you've used the Phosphagen system, which lasts for about 10 seconds, then the lactic acid system can now start from there. And for it can last up to 5 minutes or an extra 1 or 2 minutes if you get what I'm saying. But what you need to know is when you're in a gym, for example, lifting, and you're having a training set of, about 10 to 12 reps, that's the kind of energy system that you're basically using out there. Anita, I see you. Thanks so much. And you're saying something that you never see me in your house. But I think I try. You should check your previous comments. I'm sure you'll find me there. So that's basically it. That's the glycolytic or the lactic acid system. What you need to know is it uses carbohydrates, it uses glycogen as the form of storage of carbohydrates, breaks it down into glucose, then enters into that glycolytic pathway. And at the end, you produce 2 molecules of pyruvate and 2 molecules of ATP. But because there's absence of oxygen, it goes into the lactic acid synthesis. So when you form that lactic acid, it's what makes our muscles burn like crazy, if you understand what I'm saying. And we're saying that the only way you use this is when you're doing an exercise that lasts maybe for 5 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes, or if you're doing a training set in the gym that goes for about maybe 6 to 10 reps, 12 reps, and all that kind of stuff. That's the energy system that you are basically using, right? Let's look at the third one. The third one, like I said, the aerobic system. The way it sounds like aerobic, it's already tells that there's oxygen. You need oxygen for this. So this happens in the presence of oxygen. And this energy system, yes, you start from, for example, you can start from the Phosphagen system, then you go into the glycolytic pathway, then this one can take over, especially if you're doing exercises that, if you're doing exercises at low intensities, if you understand what I'm saying. Like you're walking for a long distance, you're cycling, you're on your bike and you're cycling for a long distance, you're doing a marathon, you're running a marathon. So the marathon runners, this is the kind of energy system they use. But what happens in the presence of oxygen? So you have the, like I said, also one thing that you need to know is in this energy system, you basically burning carbohydrates, but you can also burn fat as well. But because in the presence of oxygen, when you form your two pyruvates and two ATPs in the glycolytic pathway, so that's like the first stage. You understand? So you have that glycolytic pathway as your first stage, but because now you have oxygen, instead of going the other way, the lactic acid synthesis, pathway, now you continue and form an enzyme, a compound called acetylenzyme A. So that acetylenzyme A enters into the second stage, and that second stage is called the Krebs cycle or the tricarboxylic cycle. Those ones who did biochemistry, you understand what I'm trying to talk about. So what happens is at the end of the tricarboxylic cycle is you're producing more 2 ATPs, but you're also producing hydrogen ions and water. But then now you have your 2 ATPs. Of course, you have the other ones on top, so you already have 4 ATPs. So the hydrogen ions enter into the third stage called the ETC or the electron transport chain. So in the electron transport chain, that's where the magic happens. You produce about 34 ATPs. You can see that's a lot of energy, if you understand what I'm saying. 34 ATPs. Understand? Then you also produce water as well. So, but like I've said, you don't only burn carbohydrates at this. You can also be able to burn some fat. For example, fat is broken down into glycerol and then also enters into the other first stage glycolytic pathway, and then you can be able to use it to produce energy. But what's interesting is for this one, you actually produce about 129 ATPs if you actually burn fat. So that's what you are saying is actually fat, when you burn fat, you produce more energy than you burn sugar. But what happens is our body desires to burn sugar as opposed to fat. So when sugar is available all the time, is your body will tend to use sugar instead of fat. But because like I told you, sugar is stored in a form of glycogen. Our glycogen stores are also limited. So sometimes with them, with our glycogen stores and they run out, your glycogen stores can only take you about 120 minutes. So if you're doing a workout that goes beyond 120 minutes, then most likely you're going to bring in your fat stores, you're going to burn them and be able to produce even more ATP. That's why fat can provide you with energy for even up to 2 days because you have it available in your body. It's a lot. The adipose tissues, they are everywhere and they are big. They are basically big stores. So that's why if you're trying to lose fat or burn fat, the kind of energy system that you must use in your body is the aerobic system. That's why people prefer, if they want to lose fat, they prefer to do aerobic exercises. They jog, they walk, because that's when you're actually giving chance for your body to burn some fat. But if you're using, for example, high intensity interval training, if you're lifting heavily, you're basically using glycogen as opposed to using tons of fat. That's what I'm saying. So depending on your goal, then you need to choose the any kind of energy system to use. So this energy system, you can use all of them at once. Like you start with this one, you transition to this one and this one. Or you can start with this and this and this and end up here. But which energy system do you want to focus on if you want to lose fat? Or people who go into the gym, that's why they always talk about stuff like glycogen replenishment. Like you finish a heavy workout in the gym, for example, a heavy leg day, and what you think about is I need to eat more carbs, good healthy carbs to replenish my glycogen for the next workout, right? So that's why it's very, very important for you to understand these energy systems before you even start training. Because you know, for example, I'm going for a marathon or a long run. Do I need to, carb load, eat a lot of carbs so that my glycogen is well stored? I've replenished my glycogen and I'm now good to go so that I don't run out of, glucose and I'm burning all the fat. And at once, if you burn all the fat and it's done, then your body will still, burn protein to give you more energy. So that's basically what happens. But please let me know what you think about the energy systems, what you think I've not talked about so that I can clear that. But otherwise, guys, I appreciate you. Thanks so much for watching. And if you haven't subscribed, please hit that red subscribe button so that you don't miss on my uploads. See you in my next one. My love. Peace.